cost. So I bought a new computer. So I'll open it up sometime this week. All right. We still need Madam Secretary, you just let me know when we can go, when we have a quorum present to start business.
We are ready to go.
All
Oh,
right.
wait, hold on. Where is Miss Marcella? Is she not coming on today?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Lewis. I'm the senior supervisor in Juvenile. I'm actually standing in for Miss Moshella. She has a conflict and she apologizes for not being able to be here today.
Okay.
Okay, we have
Still
to
need a
wait.
voting member then. We have.
Yeah, she counted the quorum, but that's fine. I will, we can, oh, Michael Bell, he must be on the other side for some reason. Okay, right on time.
Well, he's hiding like the Cowboys offense the other. That'll get him on here.
And so it begins. And so it begins.
And I shouldn't talk because my Dolphins, they limped into the playoffs and they just going up to Buffalo just to see the snow. That's about it.
All three teams in the state.
But you know what? I'm praying, and this is a fast month for me, Mr. O'Bell. So I'm feeling pretty confident.
All right, Madam Chair. And on that note, we have quorum.
We have a quorum present. Good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year to you all. And I'm just hoping that your new year is going to be prosperous and healthy and happy, and that your sports teams win. In my mind, the Dolphins have already reached the Super Bowl. Just going to a playoff game.
Glad in your mind.
Well, that's how we knew the Christmas season begins, when you hear the Temptations. In my mind, then you know. So in my mind, they've won. But I want to welcome you all back, and want to have you all introduce yourselves. We do have people who are in the audience who don't know who you are. So I'll begin with myself. I'm Alona Holmes, retired circuit judge, and I chair this wonderful CAB.
I'm Valerie
Michael.
Alonzo. I work for the school district, Broward County Schools.
Michael Bell, community representation with community-based connection.
Miss Evans, Miss Lewis, I'm trying to be a gentleman here.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Lewis. I am the senior supervisor in the juvenile unit for the Broward County State Attorney's Office. I'm standing in today for Ms. Gloria Moshella.
Thank you, Your Honor. Cassandra Evans, Florida Department of Juvenile Justice, Chief Probation Officer.
And
We got Mr. Weeks. Wonderful.
we
Judge
have our
Carlos
secretary
Rabola.
also. We'll have our secretary introduce herself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Marsha Ellison, President NAACP, Board Secretary.
My apologies, Madam Secretary.
Go right
Judge Carlos Rabola, I've been a judge 15 years, 10 of those in the last 10 have been in the Juvenile Delinquency Division.
Our co-chair.
Gordon Weeks, co-chair of the Juvenile Justice Advisory Board,
Vice
also
chair.
Vice
Chair. Mhm.
Vice Chair, and also Public Defender. I apologize for my tardiness. I was on another Zoom and I want to jump over to make sure I'll be here.
We're glad that everyone was able to make it. All
Mr.
right.
Walters as well. He may be having trouble connecting. Roosevelt Walters.
Oh, yes, Mr. Walters, are you there on the phone?
He is. He'll connect as soon as you'll hear him chime in as soon as
Okay.
he's able to unmute. He may be using two devices.
All right. Well,
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Won't you introduce yourself?
Roosevelt Walters, I just danced at the music of the judge.
I love you, Mr. Walters. All right. Did I get everybody? All board members have been introduced. All right. I'm going to ask that you place your cell phones on vibrate or in the off position. If you'll raise your hand or use the hand signal on your device to let me know, and you will be recognized. I'm going to ask that you limit your comments, unless you're presenting, but your comments to 3 minutes so that I can get everybody's point of view and that the board can if necessary, vote. I'm going to ask that you respect all the opinions and viewpoints of all the persons. As you saw that Mr. Obell and I, we disagree on sports teams, but we are going to be nice to one another, especially because I prayed for the Cowboys to win and they didn't. So, you know, I'm working on it. All right. And also, please remember to address all board members respectfully. That would be helpful. Do the best you can with Mr. Obell when he starts talking about those Cowboys. He's got this fixation with them. So,
Madam Chair,
yes,
are you saying that not even prayer could help the Cowboys? I may have missed that part.
I'm working on it. I'm praying mightily, but you know, sometimes God will tell you to stop praying for the certain people, and that's 1 Samuel chapter 18. Just, you know.
My Cowboys gonna be just fine.
Okay. Yes, Miss Dr. Wanza.
School board member Austin says that he's present, but he's on the other side.
Well,
Right.
he's
Chair
not
has
a
asked
board
that
member.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm only, because we're live
Okay.
streaming.
okay,
I'm putting board members on.
okay, I'll let him know.
And then the audience participate, and if need be, if I need to have them show their face, then Madam Secretary will accommodate us on that. All right, Colonel Holmes in a suit. Did they look at him all dressed up?
Hello,
By the
everyone.
way,
I
we're live
apologize.
streaming on YouTube, Colonel, so everybody can see how fly you looking in your suit.
I apologize. I just ran out of another meeting. I apologize for being a couple minutes late. Good at seeing everyone.
All right, good seeing you also. And if you all don't know, Colonel Holmes represents the Broward Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, I apologize.
That's okay. I know I make you nervous, but take a deep breath. It's a new year, and the Dolphins have limped into the playoffs. I'm a happy woman. That's all I can say. You know.
Hey, how about the Eagles though?
Yeah, well, you know, they played sorry. You know, they were limping too. So my teams are limping along with the Cowboys. Okay. We're gonna stop. You don't have to be a sports fan to know what's going on in this board, but we have some good rivalries going on here, and so we pray for one another when it comes to our teams. So,
Madam Chair,
yes, who else have we got?
Member Phillips and Board Member Senator Osgood are on.
All right, if Ms. Phillips, I think she came in, she was on, and I don't see her anymore. Is your camera on?
Yeah, I'm on now.
Phillips?
Thank you.
You introduce
Yes.
yourself, and then Senator Osgood will allow you to introduce yourself.
Ella Phillips, DJJ Board.
Good evening, family. Senator Rosalind Osgood, proudly representing Florida Senate District 32.
Anybody else? All right.
Judge, just a point of order.
Yes, sir.
If my memory served me right, I think the senator is a Cowboys fan, so I'm not alone here. If my memory served me right.
You
I
know, the
think
senator,
we're
now that
Cowboys.
she represents my district, she's going to remain neutral if she can't go with the Dolphins. This is my prayer.
As long as the Cowboys beat the Dolphins, I always pull for them.
You know, Senator Osgood, you know, the prayers of the righteous availeth much. We're going to have a lot of talk on this about these Cowboys. But once the Super Bowl is over and the Dolphins have won, then you all will see my point of view. All right. What I want to do is go through our agenda. We have a very progressive agenda today. But before I move forward, we do have an additional member that has been appointed to this board statutorily, and that is Commissioner McKenzie.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Move approval of the agenda as presented.
All right. The agenda, there's a motion to approve the agenda. Okay, there's a second by Dr. Wanzer. Any questions before we take the vote? All in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing nothing, the agenda is approved as voted on by this board.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Move approval of the minutes, i.e. the video from last month's meeting.
Second.
There's a motion that has been seconded. Any questions, any discussion? All right. All in favor of approving the minutes that are the actual recording of this meeting, of the meeting from December 14th? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposing? Hearing nothing, any abstaining? No abstentions, no opposition, the motion carries. Those minutes from December 14th as posted on the YouTube channel have been approved. At this time, as I said, I'm welcoming our new board member, Commissioner Robert McKenzie. So if he does pop on and you all catch that, just let me know and we'll bring him over to the panelist side. All right, at this time, I also want to talk about the civil citation. And do we have Ms. Gaynor here? Civil citation program.
I think her hand is up.
Ms. Rodriguez has her hand up.
I can't see the hands up.
You with the county?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Would you unmute? Okay.
Hi, yes, good afternoon. My name is Leslie Rodriguez. I'm the supervisor here for Juvenile Civil Citation, filling in for Ms. Tamika Gaynor to report on the monthly report for December.
Okay.
So for the month of December, we had 46 citations. 12 of those citations, the majority of citations were issued to youth 14 years of age, and the highest offense was for battery. We had, out of the 46 citations we received, the majority were from male, which was 33 male and 13 female. And we received 42 of those youth identified as youth as color, either Black or Latino. 88% of the
Okay,
youth.
Ms. Rodriguez, before you go on, don't lump them in. I want to know demographically, Black,
Yes.
white, Hispanic, or Latino.
Yes.
Okay,
So we had,
okay.
yes, Judge, we had 24 Black youth, 4 whites, and we had 88% of our youth from October to the month of December of last year. 88% of them successfully completed. 100% of those youth that completed the program October, November, and December of 2021 haven't recidivated a year later. And also for the month of December, the majority of the referrals came from the Broward Sheriff's Office, and second was Miramar. And then the third was we received 4 from the Broward State Attorney's Office, 4 from Fort Lauderdale, and 4 from Pembroke Pines.
Okay. When you say, Ms. Rodriguez, when you say majority, we need numbers because I don't know what you're defining as majority.
Okay, so
Okay,
out of 46 cases that we received, 14 were from the Broward Sheriff's Office, 4 were from the Broward State Attorney's Office, 3 were from Coral Springs, 3 were from Davie, 4 were from Fort Lauderdale, 3 was from Hollywood, 1 was from Lauderhill, 5 was from Miramar, 4 from Pembroke Pines, 3 from Plantation, and 2 were from Sunrise.
And how many from Sunrise again? I'm sorry.
2.
Okay, thank you. All right, and so we have 100% non-recidivist rate.
Yes, so 100% of the youth who completed the juvenile civil citation program in October, November, and December of 2021 have not recidivated since a year, since we run the report again in December, meaning they have not had any adjudications or adjudications withheld within the past 12 months.
Questions from the board? Any questions of Ms. Rodriguez? All right, thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. I know you did well. You held up well.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, all right. At this time, Mr. Weeks, I'd like to hear what the work group is, our prior discussions and we go back. I pulled my notes from October. We've been talking about this. What happens to those youth who cannot receive civil citations? I was happy to hear that a civil citation had been issued for a battery charge in the report that Ms. Rodriguez gave. But there are youth, because of domestic violence charges, that can't receive the citation or do not receive. I can't say can't, but they do not receive the citation. And therefore, they're given a case number in the system. Our question is, what happens to them? Are we tracking them? Are they being given diversion programs, or what's happening with them? So you, in your capacity as vice chair, you put together a work group, a committee to study this. We didn't get a report last month, so I'm really interested because if something can be done, and I know I want to hear from Chief Evans because she said she put out requests for proposals and there were no takers, there's no respite for these kids. We're losing them. We need to find out what's going on, because if the legislature can intervene, maybe come up with like they have Batterers Anonymous for adults. What do we got for the kids? Okay, they're little people, younger people anyway. So Mr. Weeks, take it away.
Thank you, Judge, and thank you, Madam Chair. Both the same person, but nonetheless, I had an opportunity to attend the work group meeting that's being headed up by Judge Williams on the respite issue. Chief Evans was in attendance. A number of other folks were in attendance. They had all of the key personnel from the Department of Children and Family Services, the Department of Juvenile Justice, the local government, Broward County was represented, and they seemed to be having some progress. I was very happy to see that they have worked through most of the logistical issues behind trying to put a permanent respite facility here in Broward County, but they've also moved to the point of identifying a location. And that was very positive to see that they've gotten that level of progress moving forward. So I am hopeful that based on the tone of that conversation yesterday, based on the level of commitment that folks were saying that they were going to work together, i.e. Department of Juvenile Justice, i.e. Department of Children and Family Services, agreements that need to be put in place between the two when it comes to funding and things of that sort, and policy and procedure. It seemed like everybody was speaking the same tune. Judge Williams had put a lot of work into getting there, and there would seem to be some challenges they were anticipating in the past when it came to funding. Those issues may be in a better position to be resolved moving forward. And I'm very hopeful based on that conversation that I witnessed yesterday, that they will have that hope. I don't want to put a deadline on it, but it seemed like they were pretty quick. And I was hoping to make it in the next 90 days, they would have this thing popped off, up and running and ready to go. Chief Evans probably in a better position to give a final date on it, but they seem like they were moving very, very quickly. On the other issue as to civil citation for these domestic cases, we are continuing that conversation with the state attorney's office. This is going to require some joint creativity to come up with a diversionary type process for those domestic cases. And I want to be clear when I'm speaking about this in a public forum that we're talking about sibling on sibling domestic type issues, where brothers may have fisticuffs in the backyard, or a sister may have a disagreement over something and they come to fisticuffs and police are called. We're not talking about traditional boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife coming to blows. We're talking about what we're trying to focus on and get the state determinant agreement on, or sibling and sibling type scenarios where oftentimes that stuff is usually due to maturity and the close confines of being a sibling. I know, and many people on this call have expressed in the past that as young people, I have a brother and we used to get into it all the time growing up. As a part of growing up. And I'm sure a lot of folks can share those feelings, but no police were ever called when we had our fisticuffs or pushing matches, things of that sort. That being said, I am constantly trying to have those conversations where there will be a level of comfortability with the state attorney to develop a program that will address those types of behaviors. So with that, that is my report. I'm happy to see that significant progress has been made with the respite. They've identified a location. They've identified all the active parties. They have to identify the date they're going to pull the trigger. And with the sibling on sibling type diversionary issues, I'm negotiating with the state attorney. And with that conversation is going to continue and it will eventually bear fruit. It's just a matter of coming to some common ground where everybody's comfortable on the level of safety and security, along with rehabilitation that is necessary for those types of children. That's my report, Madam Chair.
Chief Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll pick up with a point of that was left off by Mr. Weeks about safety and security. So the need for the respite facility is certainly warranted, so you could have the separation and then of course establish the appropriate safety parameters. So a site visit was conducted in December, late December, with key stakeholders in the community, to include a contractor who was able to look at the facility, which was once a DJJ facility that's placed on South Florida State grounds, to begin to do a true cost analysis as to what it would take to actually bring the facility up to code. It's been unoccupied for at least 15, 20 years. So of course, it's quite an amount of work to be done. So in about 2 weeks, we hope to have that dollar amount so we can begin to advocate for the necessary fixed capital funding for the building piece of it. What we were able to also do over the last couple of months is to identify 2 providers who are actually interested in providing the services once the facility is obtained. When we first began this conversation, the providers were very reluctant and hesitant because of the liability and the bad publicity that goes along with serving this population. But we have 2 who have come forth and expressed an interest. So we're looking forward to building on those relationships. In our discussion, we also brought out to Judge Robolo's point in different correspondence about the money and how we would really have to most likely blend funding in order to support the rate of having young people served. And so we've initiated those conversations. I think from a advocacy standpoint, one of the strengths we have here is that Mr. Larry Ryan from ChildNet has made contact with Mike Carroll, who was a previous DCF secretary who sits on the board of Lutheran Services. So he's knowledgeable of the issue, as well as Commissioner Nan Rich. And so we have some of those who moved the political wheels and have worked in that arena with children in custody to help facilitate that process. And of course, we have our very own Senator Osgood, who's certainly a champion of children. So we're kind of working it from all different angles at this point. So in 2 weeks, again, we're going to report on the money, and then we're going to begin to do the facility part of it first while we build the capacity with the program. So that's the first piece of, so we need a place for them to go. The respite facility that's available by Lutheran Services continues to increase capacity as they near completion of their renovations, and of course, become fully staffed. So we still have an opportunity there with Lutheran Services in Oakland Park. So that's what we have currently. I think those are the bigger pieces. And I did have a follow-up action item, Madam Chair, from the previous issue with Leslie's report, but I paused there to see if I answered all the questions or if anything else is needed of me.
I think one of the questions was do we have the data on the arrests? And that's before I recognize the secretary of this board. The questions from the October meeting were, do we have data on these arrests? And that's where the state attorney's office can come in and help us greatly. Ms. Mashala didn't have it. She said she would look into it. She's not here today. So Ms. Lewis, you know anything about that?
I apologize, Your Honor. I do not have that information. Ms. Moshella wanted to be here today. She had a conflict there at the same time, but I do not have that information with me today.
Right, but you're supervisor. So is that information available? The data on juveniles who have been arrested for domestic violence?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would ask if, I don't work over there, but when Mr. Weeks was in charge of juvenile at the public defender's office, I don't know where he found the time, but he did find the time to work and get the data for us, because these children have been arrested. So clearly, the records are there, but I would hope that we would get to know what we're looking at first. And Mr. Weeks, one of my 1,000,001 requests, if perhaps maybe John James could work on this to get us the data. Because I think if we're waiting on the state alone, we were not going to be able to get what we need. So I know that you had mentioned possibly working with John James on this, but I want to know what happened to those children. We've seen the numbers month after month after month for the last year. What has happened to those children who have been arrested, charged, and
prosecuted.
Or what has happened to those children? So I don't know if, I know it's a heavy lift perhaps, but you got us spoiled. So can you help us getting this? Because we're talking about this in more generalities, and I think we need to talk about the number of children, who these children are. We know that they're Black children, primarily male children. And I think if we I'm not convinced that every one of those is what was warranted. I think the details would probably be more telling for us, and talk about it in detail as we can. So that is my ask through the chair, Mr. Weeks, if you will please.
Chair, if I may.
You may. And then I'll hear from Miss Lewis, because she's looking at, that's my question to her. If she's a supervisor, if she can get that too. So
what I think I'm going to do right now while we're talking is I'm going to prepare a spreadsheet type ask, meaning child's name, child's race, child's charge, child's date of arrest, child's disposition. I'm going to share that with the state and ask them to fill it out, and I'm going to try to fill it out on my end. The reason why I'm going to share it with the state is because if I fill it out, we're only going to capture the people that have been appointed in my office. We want to capture all of the children. So we're going to need the state to supplement those kids that we don't have. And I will share that with Chief Evans, and she can supplement whatever that we both may not have seen. And then hopefully we can then redact the identifying information and be able to share the totals that we're looking for, i.e. whether we're arrested for a domestic, whether there was a sibling involved, when was the date, what was the gender or race, and what was the disposition and outcome. Because I think what we're trying to identify is, are these children missing an opportunity for otherwise divertible or civil citation incident because it is a domestic violence incident? I understand what we're trying to accomplish. Let me prepare that, and I will share the template with the chair and then pass that on for the folks to pull in the information.
You think that can be done by next meeting, or you need more time?
I'm doing it right now, Judge.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Sometimes it's just a computer button, so Ms. Lewis, is that doable on your end?
Your Honor, I will let Ms. Moshella know everything we're discussing, and I am sure she looks forward to working with Mr. Weeks.
Okay. Mr. Obel.
I want to go back to something Ms. Evans said, Madam Chair. You brought up Larry and the Lutheran services. Now, I know there was a time where there was a lot of arrests being done, especially with kids from group homes. Are we seeing an uptick in that as well? Do we know?
Not particularly, Mr. Obel.
Okay. That's all. Madam Chair.
Madam Secretary, did you have further questions? Yes, Mr. Walters, let me, the secretary had her hand up but I didn't forget you. I was gonna definitely ask you. Secretary Ellison.
Yeah, I wanted to, thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to point out to the board members that on latter part of last year, the county pointed out, they prepared a chart that talked about missed opportunities. And we know the majority of those were domestic violence. And I believe something like 88% of those children were Black. They were not given an opportunity because as it stands, they don't parent. But those of us who've been around for a while know, if you recall, when we started our the promise and school-based arrest, the police were then looking, they were finding other things to name it, to divert attention away from what they were doing. So for a while, everything was disorderly conduct, which means a kid would get arrested and no questions were asked. And then when that was discovered, then it moved on to things like a fray. And even at that time, Maria was the chief, and she said, I don't even know what that is. Should have looked it up to see what the fray charge was. She said, I can't believe they're using this. So one of the things, the colonel and London here, you don't have your title, so I was going to promote you to colonel there as well. That some of the law enforcement did was to make sure that the action fit the crime, so to speak. And so you could have a kid, you had children who literally ran in a hallway, and then depending on the officer who arrived, that could have been disorderly conduct. So what we're trying to do is drill down and figure out, is that charge warranted? It could have been something else, or do you still have people doing that? We won't know that until we look and see what this really is across the board. So we want to make sure that number one, what happens to them, and if these children are charged appropriately as we go across. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Walters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to go back to our public defender as well as our probation chief. And when you talk about financing for the resource center, Mr. Weeks stated that it sounded like they were having a collaboration on the financing of such. If both of you can remember 4 or 5 years ago, when we were trying to get a place for juveniles, that was also an issue. And because we could not get that commitment from the people or the organizations involved, that fell through. So, and I know you said they're looking for a contractor now to renovate some old place down in the asylum. I wouldn't put it down there if it was me, but that's beside the point. I'm not in charge. But if we get the finance for that, where do we get the finance to run, maintain, and house the people who will be in there? And what will be the amount of time that is for a person to remain in, the maximum amount of time a person can remain in the respite housing? And the third thing that I need an answer to is you mentioned advocating, Chief. You said that we'll be advocating, and my question who will be the target?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay. All right. As it relates to programming, so I guess the solicitation, which is what it will be for those who are going to staff up and provide services in the facility. We have 2 interested providers. So what I anticipate happening, Mr. Roosevelt, it may not be an either or, it may be an and. So we can provide an array of services there. So if those 2 providers are able to come into contractual relationship primarily, most likely the contracting entity probably would be maybe DCF or Broward Behavioral Health. just because of where it falls. So that's kind of how we're going to handle that piece. Right now, we don't know what that's going to look like because this is going to be the first time we're finding ourselves in this posture in years. So unfortunately, I don't have the best of answer, but we're trying to work through those details now. So that's just programming. We do have two providers who have expertise in providing services to children short-term in a residential setting. So we have that. As far as length of stay, when we look at best practices, respite care ranges between 14 days to about 30 days, of course, with discharge planning on day one. You have another tier, that's for the typical client. You have another tier of youth who we discover have much more complex needs and the family dynamics are much more challenging. And so you may look to up to 45 days to 60 days. After that, we begin to look for alternative placements. If not, we find ourselves almost creating an institutional style setting. So best practice is as short as 14 days, no more than 60, right? And that's just for respite care delivery. As far as advocacy, we need to break out advocating and truly confirming or obtaining funds for two different categories. For the facility, which is typically fixed capital expenses, a one-time expenditure is done. And we can do that all the way on the state level. We can do that locally, through the respective cities. That was one of the asks yesterday, suggestion yesterday on the committee meeting, as well as through the county. So we have a couple of different ways to look at that as it relates to the procurement piece of it. Again, if we use behavioral health money, then that typically will pass through DCF, through Broward Behavioral Health, and then the Department of Juvenile Justice will probably enter into a rate agreement in order to secure beds one by one. So that's how we are looking to do it. And who are we going to address? All of those who make the decisions about where the money goes. So the cities, the counties, the commissioners, and we talked about the League of Cities. It's a couple of different layers that we spoke of. So hopefully that somewhat at least answer some of those questions. I don't have all the answers today, though.
Mr. Walters, were your questions, did we cover?
She did a very good job. In fact, she did such a good job. She even created another question.
You may.
And that is, for those of you who can remember back when we were trying to do something similar the last time, and we got into the, I don't know what you want to call it, but the state was saying, well, Broward, since you're such a great donator of monies to help take care of the other states that's got to do something, we don't want to lower your obligation to the state in order for you to have monies left to take care of programs like this. I am almost certain that we're going to see the same thing. So, Madam Chair, let's get ready, because that's what we had to do the last time. And I appreciate Mr. Weeks and the Chief for working so hard on trying to make things become good, right, and just in Broward County.
Thank you. Connor Holmes, your hand is up.
Yes, Madam Chair. I just wanted to go back to what Ms. Ellison stated earlier in reference to officers, I guess, trying to find the elements to put in for those crimes. One of the things that we've been monitoring here, at the Sheriff's Office is making sure that we don't fabricate or embellish certain things to try to make it fit. We're holding the supervisors, the frontline supervisors are held accountable, as well as the deputy that's completing the report. It is what it is. If you don't have the elements, you don't have the elements. But those that try to fabricate and try to make it fit to add to that PC, they're being held accountable, and we're watching and monitoring closely with all the supervisors and the deputies as well.
Thank you. And Secretary Ellison, your hand's still up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is to Mr. Weeks and the other members, Chief Evans and the other members of the committee. Have we involved our legislators such as Dr. Osgood? We know they've been doing in committee meetings, and have we talked about working through funding or any other thing that she might be able to do to help us with this issue?
Chief Evans, you want me or you?
I have not, Madam Secretary.
On this particular issue, I have not as well. I have not been in the driving seat for this issue. This is an issue that Judge Williams has taken as his initiative, and I'm here to support him. But I will, and I've made myself available and told them when they need, and I know they're going to need some folks to speak on this issue eventually, that I will be there along with Chief Evans and the other stakeholders as well. But Senator Osgood is a champion of children's issues, and I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with her on the need for respite in Broward County.
Secretary Ellison, your hand.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the senator is looped in. She's going back and forth to tell us that I'm not sure what the judge is waiting on, but she hit the ground running. The time is now to say, we need your help, and you can help us, tell us what we need to do in order to get her involved and to help, because we don't have a better person to bring it forth than the senator.
Madam Chair?
Yes, you may respond.
I would also include Representative Bartleman, who I did speak to briefly at a Broward delegation meeting. And so, but certainly, point well taken. Madam Secretary, I would like to, if I may, Madam Chair, you had a data question, if I could go back to that.
Yeah, I certainly did. Where can I get that information?
Yes, I have a report that pulls the first time, and I did this about a year ago for us, that pulls the first time misdemeanor cases, which are pure civil citation by statutory definition, that resulted in delinquency processing. And to the point of Mr. Weeks about, and maybe Secretary Ellison, about other charges being used when this criteria is not fully met. I have the entire list and what I can provide it. So that would give all the parameters that you've asked for, and then we can delve into it that way. For the year of 2022, we have 206 young people unduplicated who are on the list, who was first-time misdemeanor in those cases resulted in delinquency processing. What that is, it could range from a variety of dispositions. So I'm able to,
first-time misdemeanors, excuse me just a second, first-time misdemeanors, is that just for the battery, the domestic violence battery, or the 877s and the 856s and the 812s and all the other things that are overused,
Yes.
Disorderly conduct and loitering.
And do you break it down by school base?
It's the latter. It will be all charges that are categorized as a misdemeanor, and as it relates to schools, that is not a data field in this set of data, but we have most of what we need. But if school is, you want school at the time of arrest, or
if it was school based,
on campus, you all looked at school, anything you could. Last I heard, you all did. If you're on the school bus, at a school sponsored trip, at the football game, in the school, anything that you all would designate school based, is that arrest school related?
Okay.
That includes Coconut Creek across the street at the mall.
Yes. I will. We have to look at that case by case, because that's not a particular data field, but yes, we do have that. So I can provide that to our mighty committee of 3, and we will begin to delve into that. So I do have that available. And then on the point of data, last month, it was asked about the concern as it relates to how the system displays quantitatively the number of civil citations. That was done once years ago by statutory, but is no longer required. It was asked for me to make that request for that to be removed out of the system. And then Mr. Weeks asked if Broward County was the only one making the request. So what would be the momentum behind it? So I did make that request again to help float it back to the top. It's still on the list of system changes. And no, Broward County is not the only county who's made that request. I wasn't given the specific counties that made the request, but we were not the only ones who had wanted that change. So there is some will beyond just our circuit advisory board for that. So I just want to give you that update. And Mr. Weeks, you all have that report certainly by Friday. I just need to extract it and clean it up and put the data fill on there for the school-based arrest.
And whatever you can share, you know, with the committee, it would certainly be appreciated, so we don't have to keep talking about this month after month. Data is important, and I'll explain the reason why we ask for data. Data is important because data drives legislation, it drives funding, but you can't just walk into a meeting and say, this happened, the majority of it is, people want to see numbers, okay? And if we have good data, we can effectuate change in those issues. Madam Secretary, your hand remains
Yes,
up.
thank you, Madam Chair. I had a quick question for Chief Evans. So you met with Representative Bartleman. Did she commit to being a sponsor? And did she has she met with someone from the Senate side to also be the Senate sponsor?
No, the depth of the conversation was not of that. We just spoke to needs of young people involved in the delinquency system. It was a very high level conversation, but no, those topics were not covered, Madam Secretary.
Senator, we need your help because we're doing a lot of talking. We've been talking, I don't know how many years on this. You're there, and I would ask if there was any way that you can help us get this thing moving. We would greatly appreciate it.
What's the address of the anticipated location?
I'll provide that to you. I need to look it up. It's the site of South Florida State Hospital, which is in Pembroke Pines. But I'll put that in the chat to you, Dr. Osgood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further questions regarding that? I will put one footnote there. I'm familiar with respite programs, but in Broward County, respite programs become long-term, and that's not what they were meted or defined to be. And that's why a lot of people opted out of providing respite services, because we just kept people in there too long because we had nowhere else to put them. And so I think that kills every respite program. And so you got to think about that and make a determination and think prospectively. Yeah, you can get the service, you get the place, but you know, if we're talking maybe 30 days max, 45 days, it's not for people to set up a dwelling. But Broward is notorious. I can speak for Broward because I'm familiar with the programs. Every respite program that we've had has been killed because it became long-term and the providers could not sustain that. So if you would think about that in your future planning and have sort of like a plan B, that would be helpful to keep the respite program going. Any further discussion with regard to the work group's presentation?
I just have there are two Dr. Wanzas. Who's this other person?
Well, I just got I was asked about that. I think what's happened is, and this is what's going on. A lot of times you get the email and the emails are being shared. They're being forwarded for people to log on. The emails that you all get as board members, they are specific. The link is specific to you. it will have your name. In the future, going forward, to sort of like to alleviate that problem, is we are live streaming. We are on YouTube. So anybody, they don't have to now call in or email saying, I need the link. We are live stream right now. We are live. The panelists, we will get a link so that we can be shown on the screen. Does everybody, you got that? It makes it easier. Okay.
And we're continuing to send out to everyone that said they wanted to get our emails, the notifications. We are still sending those out with the regular attendee link.
Yeah. You know, the notices go out, but the links, that's becoming a problem because people are sharing. I saw Ms. Brown and I was getting dizzy because her screen was rolling. It was like she was scrolling. It was one of those old Charlie Chaplin movies.
Trying to get cut off, but she
Okay.
keeps trying.
Okay, thank you, because I was trying to figure out, was it something on our end, but it's on her end. All right, no further questions with regard to the work group. Let's go to and it's on there twice, it's number 4 and number 6, but it's all mental health services. Let me preface our discussion by saying this. Last month, I read an article, I shared it with you, those that wanted to read it, that 5,077 children have been Baker acted. The majority of them have been Baker acted from Palm Beach and Broward County. Palm Beach keeps numbers, Broward did not. Now there is now mandatory legislation to keep up with that there has to be reporting, there has to be calling of a family member or guardian to let them know where the child is so that they're not reporting the child as being lost or missing or anything like that. But that concerns me. And then every day there's a report of something happening regarding mental health and our children. I can't explain it. I'm not in the psychology field, even though I'm reading a lot of books and law review articles and things like that regarding it. But the pandemic did something to the mindsets of everybody. We as adults, we can handle it a lot better than the children can, because they're just going to act out. We'll suppress as long as we can. Children don't know what suppression is. They're just going to, somebody bothers me, I'm going to get them. All right. So I began to think that maybe we could make recommendations and have things done for our children here in Broward County, because I am of the mindset, and I could probably make the argument that a lot of the arrests and things that are going on with our children have a mental health component to it. There was an article released about the Sheriff's Department, Colonel Holmes, that at least 90% of your inmates there that you're housing have mental health components in addition to the crimes that they have committed. And the mental health issues may have precipitated the reason they committed the crime. So Judge Robolo, in your absence, Judge Stacey Ross covered for you. And I had been in some conversations with some judges out of California, through the National Judicial College. We're just sitting around, and I heard them talking about a juvenile mental health court. They have them in California. And I started searching the state of Florida. We don't have juvenile mental health courts. We have mental health courts for felony. We have a mental health court in Broward. It used to be Judge Lerner Wren. I don't know who's got it now, but we still have it for misdemeanors. Okay, but we limit our children to case management. And I think that a lot of things can be dealt with if we, in Broward County, so to get the judiciary involved in this, is have a juvenile mental health court, because we're not sending juveniles to Judge Porth unless they're charged as an adult. And we don't want that to happen, to charge them as an adult just so they can get services. We don't want that. So Judge Ross said that she would relay the information to you. I don't know if you had time to speak to Judge Ross, but she thought it was a phenomenal idea. And so I'm hoping that I can impress upon you to work with the other components of the 17th Judicial Circuit. That would be the Chief Judge, you, Judge Williams as the chairperson for the Juvenile Division, the State Attorney's Office, Mr. Pryor, as well as the Public Defender's Office, the Public Defender, Mr. Weeks. But we got to get real about this. What we have been doing is not really showing anything. So I asked Dr. Wanza at the last meeting to be prepared to tell the board what services the Broward County schools are providing to these children. Children don't ask for stuff. They're not going to walk into class and say, I need to talk to somebody. So is there like a referral, like the teachers are able to talk to somebody and say, look, I'm having some problems with this child. I don't really think that they're bad. I think something's going on with them. So can you give us an outlay, Dr. Wanza, if you will, of what services are available to the students?
So good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year. If I want to answer 2 questions from last month. The first one, the question was around the number of Baker Acts to date for this school year in school. So from the beginning of the school year in August to today in school, Baker Acts is 93.
Oh.
And when I say today, let me say December of 2022.
Okay.
Okay. Last school year from the school calendar, August to June, that number was 355. And this was the threat to self. And then there was some concern, and rightly so, around if a student is Baker acted from the school, what contact is made with the parent so that the parent does not think that their children are lost, missing, that kind of thing. So we have in the suicide risk assessment process that must be completed with a Baker Act, and the suicide risk assessment process includes parental contact. So one of the things that tomorrow is the three regional and the one non-traditional schools meeting, where some of the concerns that were voiced here around parents not being contacted, they didn't know. We have some conversation that we're going to have with principals, because
tell them that is now state mandated.
Well, yeah, Senate Bill 590.
You got it.
Right. And so some whole conversation around that and what the requirements are. It's not if you have time, no, you are required. You have to make contact with the parents. So we're going to go over that tomorrow again as a reminder. And as far as mental health is concerned, so I had a long conversation with Ms. Hudge. I also had it with Ms. Cummings, who is the district SEDNet coordinator. Cassandra, you're shaking your head.
What's SEDNet?
SEDNet is the, oh goodness, hold on. I know what it is.
Severely emotionally disturbed network.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so typically when a child is Baker acted, there is a SEDNet referral that may accompany that Baker Act. But as far as the district is concerned, you're asking what services. So there are a variety of things, but to Secretary NAACP President Ellison's point, if they're not communicated and readily available when people go to access them, then it's just a poster on a wall. So one of them, all of the students have access to something on their district landing page. Every child has their Clever page where they log on. They can get it from a cell phone, a laptop, their single sign on. There's an app there called the Talk app, TALK, Talk app. And the students right there, they themselves can access that app, and they can request for a conversation, an appointment to be connected to a mental health professional. So that's one. We obviously still have the family counseling services that are typically located throughout the county. There's like a site in each innovation zone or feeder pattern, which was the typical location where the program provides up to 12 sessions. Of course, they do get referred from the school. So the school has guidance counselors, social workers, psychologists. Yes, they do have caseloads. Yes, but they are assigned to every school, and referrals can be made. As a classroom teacher, a classroom teacher can make a referral to guidance or school social work and say, listen, something's going on. I'm concerned. Those kind of things are readily available at the school. And then I'm going to put in the chat the website where all of the district resources links are. But then there's there are some comprehensive mandated lessons that have been created to provide support across the K-12 spectrum. So there are a number of things, but again, to everyone's conversation, if they are not adequately and appropriately and efficiently and continuously communicated and readily available when people go to access them, then they are of no help. So that's the brief overview, but I will put the link to the resources portal here in the chat.
Okay.
And I'll pause there in case there is a question, but I did give the 93 number. When I say to date, I mean from August through December of 2022. And then for the 21-22 school year, the number was 355.
Questions of Dr. Wanza?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Obel?
no, I'll go to the seniors board member, Mr. Walter, before I go.
Mr. Walters, did you have a question? Mr. Obel is deferring to you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Ovell. Yes, Madam Chair, my question to Dr. Wanza, one is these Baker actives, is there a demographic breakdown on who is being Baker acted by race, by gender, and by school?
So I will speak with the coordinator, how she disaggregates the information and see if I can provide some that in a more written format, like we're going to do. I think it's next month with the other information that was requested. So
And
you
my
want to
second
disaggregate it further.
My second question is, when Little Roosevelt is being Baker acted, who picks him up to take him to wherever it is that he got to go?
So it typically happens through one of two vehicles. The school may call for mobile crisis. And sometimes if mobile crisis says that it's going to be 2 hours, 3 hours, they may ask for the assistance through law enforcement, and typically it's their SRO or something. And then the law enforcement agency then works with the school on the transport. But in any event, whoever's transporting, the school has an obligation to contact and notify and speak with parents.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm a little bit concerned if Little Roosevelt is already having problems to the point that where someone believes that he need to be Baker acted, then to have a police officer in or out of uniform be that person, I think it creates additional stress on the young person who is doing this. And now I'm normally a person who have the answer to the question that I'm asking, but in this case, I don't have the answer, because I don't know the full details behind Baker acting at school properties.
Mr. Walters, let me interject this. Last year, Representative Fentress Driscoll introduced a bill to have non-uniform, non-police officers transport the children who are Baker acted to the facilities that they are Baker acted to. That bill died in committee. So Senator Osgood, you're here, so maybe you and Fentress can get together and resurrect that thing.
If you would allow, since you called my name, I think that we have to be serious about this. Our educators in schools are educators. Right now, our children are in a mental health crisis. They grieve very differently. I have family members that I've had to help family members to get Bakerite over the last 2 or 3 months, just episodes, never no problems. When you're on a school campus and a child starts going off in a dramatic way, you cannot detain them. You're limited in how you can respond to that child. So if an educator is going to take on that risk, that's a whole nother liability for school systems. I don't feel that anybody in Broward County schools are just mistreating children and Baker acting them. I think as a community, we have to do a better job with just understanding mental illness. I've certainly had to increase my knowledge over the last couple of months of what I've been.
You're muted, Doc.
I've had to increase my knowledge of just what I've been dealing with family members that I would not put in my car to take for help because of their behavior. And some of it is happening through drugs. It's another thing we're naive about. When kids are smoking pot and vaping now, a lot of our high-performing kids, it's laced with fentanyl and other things that causes them to literally trip out. And they start thinking that you're working with Russia to kill them. It is just really dramatic. So as we talk about this, I think it would behoove us, as Mr. Walters was saying, that we kind of get a better understanding. I'm also on the Broward Behavior Health Coalition board. So I see a lot and learn a lot about the whole mental health piece through that. But I want to be careful with our educators that we're not putting them at risk or in a position to react to something that is not a part of their training in the scope of what they do. It's a very sticky thing. But if we want to truly help our children, then I think we have to be better prepare ourselves to do that. And I'm not insulting anybody's intelligence. I'm just telling you what's happening with these kids today around mental health is like nothing we've ever seen before because of the different combination of drugs and stuff that they're being exposed to. And it's not children that we would just think street children doing drugs. It could be something that's getting a tooth pulled and a doctor giving you fentanyl for a painkiller, and it freaks your brain out. These are the kinds of real life things that we're dealing with. And then it falls on the hand of a teacher or an administrator in the school who has limited training. I had an encounter with BSO, Colonel Holmes. I was very satisfied with the way that they handled the situation. The officers were very trained when they dealt with my little cousin. He was talking all about his intellect and all this stuff, talking to him. They knew exactly what to say. You know, I'm just looking like, wow, you know, he's going way off the deep end. You know, I'm wondering if I might need to start back carrying my pistol. I'm just being totally honest. But the officers really knew how to deal with him because they had had the training. So I just want to caution us as we're talking through this, that we always position our educators in a position that they can stay in their lane, but also be helpful to our children.
Well, I think that's part of the legislation. So if you go back and read Fentress's legislation, I'll pull it up again and I'll disseminate it to the board. But it didn't pass out of committee. I believe her suggestion was to have people who are trained in mental health services rather than uniformed officers to go to schools and pick the children up. Judge Williams, when he was on this board, said that he would have hearings and then find out later that when the children were taken out into the hallway outside of his courtroom, in the back hallway to go to the elevator, they were taken not back to a facility, but they were taken to, they were Baker acted right outside his courtroom. And that's where we started talking about this a couple years ago. And now that we have seen it become of epidemic proportion, we're talking about it now. we're trying to come up with ways, but it has never been my suggestion that teachers transport children anywhere. Outside the courtroom, teachers should not be having contact with students because a lot of teachers are getting accused of doing things that, you know, in the Bible, I'll quote that to you, let not your good be evil spoken of. So I'm not an advocate of letting children being transported by teachers. But we got to come up with something. So I'll pull Fentress's legislation and disseminate it to the board. Mr. Obell, you had your hand up.
Madam Chair, just a couple of weeks, just over the holiday break, there was a young man who was murdered in Deerfield, and my agency responded to that crisis and that trauma. We went door to door in the community trying to get folks to come out, talk about the issues. At 9 o'clock in the morning, later at 12, we held group session and different therapeutic sessions with spiritual leaders and so many other folks. And from there, a conversation came from the community itself saying that we need more community policing. And so we met with Captain Adam, who's the chief of Deerfield, under representation of BSO. And in our meeting, I suggested to him that it's important that we look at some of the best practices, because we have to have multiple entries to this door that where we try to help our children to be the best version of themselves in spite with the trauma they are facing. And so in my conversation with him, I shared that it's important that we identify those who they call their community police officers that's often in our communities, but particularly the Black community, who patrol these communities every day. I suggest to him that it's important that they may strongly consider allowing a therapist to ride along with them on these shifts, so you can get a better outcome of your interaction with a child. Because the reality is not all the law enforcement officers are trained. Some react differently, and we all know, we see it on social media every day and TV. And the reality of that is his response to me that there was already a pilot done in Deerfield. So I'm not sure if Colonel Holmes can help us with that, but if there was a pilot done in Deerfield and they're ready to move forward with something like this, I'm willing to leverage my agency resource to help in terms of responding when there's trauma and challenges in our community that deals around mental health. We hire Black mental health therapists that can go out in the community and other community mental health workers in our Healing Space program to be leveraged for this kind of work, especially in the Deerfield and Pompano area. And I believe they identify someone else to do Fort Lauderdale. But all that to say, I think we have to have, Madam Chair, multiple doors to this work around mental health. But again, Colonel Holmes, I would say that in my conversation with Captain Adam, it's important that folks realize when officers patrol, not all of them are trained, and we do have challenges with them, right? And they do respond differently. And so I think if there's a pilot already that's out there that you all have tested already from Mr. Adams' statement, and it works, then we're happy to be a part of that. And if not, we're happy to leverage our resource to be a part of it, because I think it's needed when they are policing our Black and brown communities.
Right. In the order of hands that I saw go up, Colonel Holmes, Chief Evans, and I'm just calling the roll to make sure. And then Judge Rabolo, I want to talk to you about the proposed juvenile mental health court. All right, Colonel Holmes, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. I won't be long-winded on this topic. But one of the things that the sheriff has initiated here at the sheriff's office is he hired 2 mental health clinicians to be available to go on certain types of calls. One of the areas that we've seen an increase in need for is our juveniles. We've been working a lot with the school board because there's been an increased number of threats that have been made against staff at the schools, against other students with the schools. This post-pandemic era, that post-COVID-19 era has really put a hurting on our mental health aspect. And not only adults, but like we alluded to, the kids. One of the things that the sheriff wants to do, and he's been fighting hard at doing, is adding to those 2 mental health clinicians, because there's going to come a time where we are going to have to work hand in hand in making sure that the residents and specifically our youth are getting that assistance from a professional that knows what they're doing. And I can tell you, we take training in the mental health arena very, very seriously. We have numerous types of classes that are required, that are mandated for our deputies to attend. And, you know, with these mental health clinicians going on calls with our deputies, they're learning. Our deputies are watching and they're learning. And I know Senator Osgood alluded to, you know, a situation that she observed. I think that these deputies are learning from these mental health clinicians how best to handle those type of situations when coming in contact with someone in crisis. So we're going to continue. The sheriff is taking that very, very seriously. I know he's looking to get more funding to hire more people to address these issues. And, you know, we're taking this serious from a law enforcement perspective. We know that's part of our job now. You know, this is an integral part of our job. And we're taking the training seriously. And when we're hiring people, we're letting them know that it's an integral part of our job and that you got to be prepared to step to the plate and to address these type of issues. Sorry for being too long-winded.
No, you're good. You're good, Colonel Holmes. Thank
Okay.
you. Chief Evans?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 2 points. I think to the point of data being important, I think also being knowledgeable helps out. So I know last month I did a high-level review of the Broward Behavioral Health presentation that was done at the Juvenile Assessment Center Advisory Board meeting. I think if the chair will consider perhaps an update on all the services that go around Baker Act, because there are a lot of other teams, the CAT team, the FIT team, there are a lot of teams out there that are in place to help with a true wraparound approach to young people and once they're involved in the mental health system. And I think it will behoove us to be knowledgeable of those aspects. So as we try to deal with the loopholes and the pitfalls and the missing aspects of the system of care, that we're knowledgeable about what's there. And so, Madam Chair, if you would entertain that, or you could correspond with me offline, I'd be happy to help facilitate that process, because they have a wealth of knowledge and they're truly system experts. And so that may be
Are they
something.
system experts to our children?
Yes.
A lot of times we have people who specialize in adults trying to deal with children, and there is a difference. And I'm not just limiting this board to looking at Baker Acts. Baker Acts was the catalyst for me to put on the agenda mental health. Because there are children sitting in classrooms who have never been Baker Acted, but they still have mental health issues.
Absolutely.
Okay? And you may never get them Baker Acted because they're not looking to harm themselves, they're looking to harm other people. In Virginia last week, a 6-year-old brought a gun to school and shot his teacher, not once, but twice. They thought it was a one time through her hand, to her stomach. He actually shot her in the stomach. And when she put her hand over the wound, he shot her again in the hand. So they were wondering what to do with a 6-year-old with the gun. We do have legislation in this state that says children 6 years and under are not to be arrested unless the state attorney office is notified for forcible type felonies such as aggravated battery, attempted murder, things of that nature. So yes, if you can get us that information, Chief Evans, the more information we have, the more we can work with, and we can make our suggestions and to whomever is responsible to get help in the area that we need. Broward County, I don't think is doing all that it can do. All right, we still have children committing suicide in school. We have children getting Baker Acted. Dr. Wanda's report showed that we had 93 just last year. That's a high number. Okay, so we're trying to see what we can do as a board to get a handle on this. I'm not saying we can solve every problem, but we're certainly going to work on it. All right, then we're going to do Secretary Ellison.
I'm sorry, Madam, I had one.
You had one more. Okay.
Right, and I wanted to kind of pick up on what Mr. O'Bell was saying, and I think just overlay another dynamic that's presented in the delinquency system that doesn't present in the child welfare system the same way, because many of the needs are present of the families. Is, I don't want to call it an unwillingness, but truly an unreadiness to engage in mental health services, right? And so as I dissect some of the more complex cases, those children who are more deeper involved and touch the system earlier, I see what we the system identified needs in the families because of their ability to decline services multiple times. So the antithesis of what Ms. Robel is saying about what is being asked of, there's a group that continuously declines. And so how do we make the service array delivery continuum more attractive, where those who need recognize a need, and then there's a willingness. And I know the stigma with mental health, so on and so forth. So I just want to overlay that. And the challenge that we experience in the juvenile justice system is that intake period from arrest to disposition, where services are voluntary, right? And we see a lot of recidivism in that posture. We see incompetent to proceed show up. So I think that just exacerbates this challenge that we have, but I just want to put that out on the table for part of the discussion. So those are my 2 points, but I will follow up on my action, Madam Chair.
Okay. Secretary Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Getting back to Dr. Wanza's report, I have, I know you had some policies and stuff going on about sharing information and all that stuff going on. So, you may not know the answer to this, but I'll just ask. So if the child was Baker acted from the school and you call the mom and say, little Marsha's got to go and, this is where they're going. So when little Marsha gets out, what do you have, or did those families receive any type of resource list, and how does the school then deal with that particular child? I know that it's not a one size fit all, but I wanted to know that. And then when you're done, I'd like to ask the colonel and the major, is CIT, I think that's what you'll call it, mandatory for, and I'm asking you to just speak for your agencies, for SROs and SRDs. I know you have turnover, all that sort of thing. And if they don't have to have it the day they start, how long do they have to become CIT trained, if that is a thing? And if Madam Chair, I'd like to hear from Dr. Wanza first, if I could.
Ma'am, you're muted.
Sorry, I did ask that question because I kind of anticipated you were going to ask that. So I did go, and so I'll tell you what I know now. And if you have additional, I'll be glad to go back and make sure I follow up with that. So when the student is, goes to University Pavilion or wherever it is, and then the school is to make the contact. So we're going to reiterate that again tomorrow, but the child is then released and the child returns to school. Through the suicide risk assessment process, when the child returns, there is a whole safety and follow-up piece in the suicide risk assessment process that the school should be working with to see, okay, as much as the parents will tell them, right, that little Valerie went there, I have to follow up with this person, or I have to do this, or I am in need of, now I need this kind of help. The school should be documenting and connecting the families to the resources, and now all of that should be documented in the suicide risk assessment, the whole safety plan, I'm going to use that word, process of the portal. So those are the things that we're going to reiterate again as a part of the whole conversation with principals tomorrow. But yes, the school should at least be reconnecting with the family when the child comes back to, if the child comes back to, his or her school. It may be a referral through the Baker Act process that the child gets referred to a more restrictive environment, like a Cross Creek or Whispering Pines or something like that, depending on everything that's going on with the student. But there is a process that is supposed to take place and a place where it's supposed to be documented.
Madam Chair, if I may.
You may.
You're saying should have, this is a big ship. So is there any auditing that's going on to see if all these children receive what they're supposed to have, the information they got? And you mentioned, so there's nothing that, if I'm being held for 72 hours, is there nothing is being told to me, the parent, regarding my child who's being held and that I should be getting ready for when little Marsha is released? And is there anybody checking? I know that they put an audit program in for Promise to see if there was a connection there. Is there anybody checking, or will there ever be anybody checking to see if all these shoulds are actually happening?
So the whole BTA, behavioral threat assessment and suicide risk assessment processes, they are being audited by our through our district auditing department. And they're being done, I believe it's quarterly now. And so I will check with Mr. Lozano and his team to ensure that if this is a part of it, but the BTA and SRA process is being audited quarterly by our district auditing department.
And do you know what's being found?
Um,
Tell me everyone, and I hope it's true. I'd like to see it in writing, but if every one of these families got what the district requires them to have gotten.
So I'm not going to tell you that everybody got everything that was required. I will go back and look at the last auditing report, and I know that one is coming up, I believe, at the next audit committee meeting. So we'll see exactly what elements they looked at in the auditing process. And I will ask what is the process to ensure that we are looking at these elements on a more frequent basis, or what is our frequency of auditing these elements in the process.
My concern with that is, even if the family gets everything that they, when you're discharged from a hospital, they give you a form and some papers and tell you, get this prescription filled and do this, cover the, but there's nobody to call you at home to say, did you do this? I'm not saying that, but we have to, since the parents can determine what curriculum their children are following, I think it's mandatory that they follow the decisions of the psychiatrist at the University Pavilion. It says, after we release your child, then you need to do this, this, and this. Is there any follow-up on that?
So the question that I have to Ms. Cummings, who's the individual that coordinates this, is legally, what can we ask the parent once the child is discharged? Because there is now some HIPAA, I believe, conversation, because these are HIPAA records. So it's not like you can say, hey, Ms. Wanza, Charles is my son. Charles got Baker acted. He's 29 now, so he's not getting Baker acted from Pompano Beach High anymore. But Charles got Baker acted from Pompano Beach High School. And now that he's back, we need to see everything that they gave you. That may be some HIPAA issues that we just can't ask them for that. Whatever the parent is willing to tell us, then we actually work with that and then start to look at, okay, what are the wraparound services that we can connect? Okay, so they said that you have to have family counseling services. Did they refer you to one? This is what we have, connect with the family. But there are some HIPAA violations that we just can't say walking back in the door, you will give me these documents in order for me to be able to process out. That's why I said I'm going to go ask Mr. Lozano exactly what in the SRA process is being audited before I just say it's, yes. I hope that makes sense. And I'm not trying to be defiant.
And I threw that in because if we can't force them to do anything, that child is going to come back into that school environment and still be the same. And that's the problem. I don't know what we can do. I'm just throwing that out there, so.
I'm just making sure that the district is doing its part, because we did have some complaints before where children were being Baker acted and they just didn't know what to do. And there were things in place. However, it wasn't being implemented at those particular schools, not saying all. And so I just want to make sure that even if they don't accept the service or the direction that the district has offered them and it's been provided, and that they know about it. Because I understand different things. I get that part.
I think that's important. So can you check tomorrow?
Yes.
Prepared to tell us. Judge Robolo, it's the 17th Circuit.
We didn't get the second part from law enforcement about the.
Okay, I'm gonna come back, but because it's 4:31, I want to get the judicial component, and then I'll come back, because this is going to be something that we're going to be discussing for a little bit, especially with the legislative session coming up, and we have a legislator on this board. Maybe she can do something to help us out. Judge Robolo, good afternoon. Thank you for your patience, sir.
No, Judge, I'm here for you, Madam Chair, and for the board. And I appreciate, as well as all of our judges do, all the work that everyone, first of all, Judge Holmes bringing this to the forefront, and second of all, everyone's concern and work in that regard. And I assure you, Judge Holmes, Judge Ross covered for me in December, and she was quick to send me an email with regards to what you brought to her attention. And I was quick to bring it to Judge Williams's attention. And Judge Williams went and did a 5-page report on the matter, which I will provide to you, Judge Holmes. I'll email it to you.
Thank you.
And if it's a public record, so you can feel free to share it with whoever you want and every member of the board. And I'm going to tell you essentially what the judiciary's position is with regards to a juvenile mental health court. And there's a lot to say, but I'm going to say it in the 3 minutes or less that I'm given. And number one, Judge Baker Acts. I wish I can say more about that. I do have what I consider to be some good news. And that is Baker Acts are handled by the chief judge of the probate division. I don't know if you know this, Judge Holmes. Do you know who the chief judge of the probate division is going to be effective?
It used to be Charlie Green, so who's it going to be?
Kenneth Gillespie.
Okay, that's even better. Okay, good. He's a life member or something.
I knew you would enjoy that. So Baker Acts, I can get Judge Gillespie involved and let him know everything goes on in his meetings. Together with Claudette Vani, who is a magistrate, she goes out and does the actual legwork, and then he reviews it and makes the determination of what if any follow-up is necessary. If not, just signs off on it. But and I know you do, Judge, being in Judge Gillespie's hands, it is in great hands. So we don't, juvenile delinquency judges, bear in mind, we deal with, they've been arrested, they're now brought to court. What's our big mental health issue? Well, 9 times out of 10, it's competency. So, and it's a lot of that is by statute. If somebody brings up competency, we can do it ourselves if we see a juvenile who we think may not be competent, and appoint 2 or 3 experts. They're court appointed, so they're independent. They have no loyalty to the defense or to the state. They have a loyalty to the court, which means that they're independent. They don't even have they don't have an interest in the outcome of the proceedings. Judge Williams, in his 5-page discussion, is of the opinion that juvenile delinquency court is basically a therapeutic problem-solving court, and thus there, at least in the time that he's been there, there is no need for the therapeutic aspect of having an additional mental health court, because juvenile judges, and particularly in this county where Judge Williams has been there, I don't know how long, but he's been there a lot. I've been here 10 years.
He took the bench in 2002.
I know he did 5 years in criminal. So he's probably been there 15 years, Judge. Judge Orlando has been there probably the same time. I've been there 10 years, and Judge Ross, I believe, maybe 7 or 8 years, as long as she's been on the circuit bench. This is what we do, and we do it because we like it. And this is a different kind of court. This isn't criminal court. It's not adult court, which you were an expert at, Judge Holmes, and you were a mentor to me. This is a court where we're not there to punish. We're there to rehabilitate these kids. And it encompasses everything and everybody, DJJ, DCF, the school board, everyone. And so right now, we're of the position of it's not broke, it doesn't need fixing. As an addendum to that, one last thing, and I do want to give kudos to Mr. Weeks, our public defender. He has a lawyer who specializes in mental health, and her cases are strictly mental health cases. And that makes it a lot easier for all of us. And we appreciate that, especially since the one he has now and the one before her and the one before her, they were all great at what they did in fighting and representing these kids with regards to competency and other mental health issues. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, Judge. I'm also going to send you a copy of the letter from the sheriff, which I believe is a public record. Apparently, the sheriff is of the opinion that adult mental health court is broken. So I will leave you with that, Judge, unless you have you or anyone.
All I want to do is go on record that look, you know, with appellate opinions, sometimes the dissent is there, but dissent eventually becomes the law eventually. So it was just a thought because, you know, having been on the bench and making competency evaluations under 3.212 of Florida Rules of Criminal Procedure, it always made me a little uncomfortable because I don't have a degree in psychology. Me determining competency is different from mental illness. I've always said that. I'm a firm believer of it now from what I see that these children are doing. They may be able to understand that they've been charged with a crime and what the penalty is, but there's some deep-seated something that caused them to do what they did. A kid that would stab another kid, a kid that would drive by a park and shoot another kid in the head. There's something that they may be competent to stand trial, but there's something going on. So as I said, if the 17th doesn't feel that it's necessary or needed, at least we put it out there. But I firmly believe that maybe 5-10 years down the road, even when Elijah's gone off the bench, that it will happen. Okay, because children's judges making competency determinations does not solve that deep-seated problem that the kid has. And yes, our mental health court has some issues because nothing gets done, nothing gets moved, and the policy is very lax to get people in.
You're talking about adult.
But you know, hey, look, we tried. Anybody have questions of Judge Rabola? Oh, Chief Evans, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was for a comment prior to Judge Robolo's comment. It was related to the school board piece of it.
Okay.
Okay. What I want to say is that a couple years ago, when some things changed with notifications, the school board has a definite consent problem, but the issue about complying with discharge falls on the releasing facility. And so Broward Behavioral Health has put some services in place, so I'll be sure to have that part of the presentation. I just wanted to make sure everyone was knowledgeable of that.
Okay. Mr. Obel, real quick, because we've got, it's 4:39, so we're going to discuss this next month too, because we got these reports coming to us. Mr. Obel?
You're muted.
You're on mute. You're muted.
Madam Chair, I was going to ask if it's the will of the board, with your advisement, that we maybe get a presentation from Broward Behavioral Health at our next meeting, so we can get a better understanding of the rate of support.
What would you like them to present? Because I don't want people just coming here throwing, you know, saying, can I share the screen and just throwing up stuff? I need to know specific, they need to have specific parameters. So what do you want them to, and then I can make contact with them to invite them to come.
Well, I think both
Please
of our
share that offline, Mr. Obel, because we're pressed for time.
Okay.
I don't mind inviting them. If you want to know what services they offer juveniles,
Well, not so much services, because I think both of our, our colleagues here, both Ms. Evans and Ms. Senator Osgood, share some things that we're not aware of in terms of the knowledge and so forth. I just thought it was more for the body. I'm in the line of work every day, so I get it. But I just thought for the body itself, that was the only reason. But that's okay.
I always say presentations should be specific to the issues that we are discussing, not just having them come in and say, this is what we do, because I've turned down other entities that want to come in and tell me what they do. But I think
I'm just talking about just for the point of what we're discussing and some of the things that we're actually discussing to be more of a solution.
Okay, if you can send me an email, just direct it to me and tell me, what you think they can offer, and I'll agenda it. That's the chair's prerogative. I'll put it on the agenda. But I need to curtail them not to come in and think they got the whole 2 hours that we're here. So that's why I always ask what specifically, and that they can tailor their presentation to what we're talking about. So we talked about a lot of things. So if you just email me and I think they can do it, I'll send them the invite. I will call. I'll go over there. They're not far from where I am. Okay, so get that to me as soon as you can, because I always like for them, whatever presentations they're going to present, to provide it to me so I can get it to the board well before this board meets. So I don't have a problem with inviting them. Just tell me what you think they can offer, because since you say well, everything, basically what they offer, I want to know. So send it to me. The same way you tell me about the Cowboys, send me about behavioral health. I'll read it. Okay.
Can't help it.
I want to know, we got to move the agenda on. So we're going to be talking about this for a little while, because mental health is an ongoing and fluid situation. Let's talk about the Broward Juvenile Detention Center update. You have an update on that? And then following that, the youth in the Broward County jails. I need those updates from. And also, I'm still going to ask you, Major London, even though you say you never have anybody, sometimes y'all may slip up. I want to have it on the record that you don't have anybody, if that's going to be your report. All right. I think Mr. Weeks, you're doing the update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The update is that we are anticipating this legislative session kicking off. We've had some fruitful discussions. There have been some stuff coming down the pipeline from the department and the secretary. I think those are still moving in a positive direction. So we're looking for the line item in the budget request. But once that is available, I will disseminate that to, it's one thing is, you got to verify that it's in there. So once it's verified, I'll distribute that for everyone to see it, and we will keep pushing that issue forward. We're going to be making a trip up to Tallahassee very shortly for this legislative session. We have 2 trips scheduled already, and additional if necessary, to make sure we push these issues. We have 3 priorities that we're going to be addressing in Tallahassee. And the priority that is germane to the Juvenile Advisory Board is the detention center. That is one of the 3 priorities that we're going to be addressing. I have been assured that the state attorney is aligned on this issue, and they will be pushing it through their legislative relationships. And I've also had conversations with the Broward delegation, who was very, very supportive of this issue. I will be presenting with the delegation on Monday. This is the second opportunity for public presentation. Of the 3 items that I will be presenting, I will also be presenting to the delegation the importance of support behind the detention center. So we have done and will continue to do what we can to move this item forward. I've had individual conversations with a number of legislators, and I will continue to try to make sure that this stays a priority for Broward County. It's been how many years we've been working on this? 5, 6 now. But like everything with government, it takes a little time. It seems like it's a little closer this time, but you cannot count your tickets until they hatch. So until we see it passed in the budget, it's still pending until it's passed. That's my report. And I will defer to Chief Evans for any additional information on the progress.
Any further progress, Chief Evans?
I concur with Mr. Weeks that the department has it as part of our LBR package. One of the action items in Broward County, I believe, is one of the specific centers listed. So our support still continues, and I know our efforts to work with what we have still can, to get the best out of what we have is still on the table as well.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Weeks or Chief Evans?
One other item, Madam Chair. We have a visit scheduled for the detention center. Cassandra, I saw you slipped in there. But we'll be visiting the detention center to do a walkthrough for new elected officials, and anyone else that is interested in attending.
When is the walk?
We haven't confirmed a date because everyone's calendar is very, very difficult. But once I get a date, I will direct that to the chair, and she can disseminate it to all the members, and whoever wants to join us. I'm sure the more the merrier, because the more eyes, the more questions, the more discussion, the better. And I think the more familiarity we have with that facility, because we're all community advocates for that facility, and we need to understand it in and out. So that means we should walk through it, know where kids are sleeping, how they're being treated, what's the strengths of the facility, what's the weakness of the facility to better advocate for. So I will support that as soon as I get a confirmation date.
Any questions of Mr. Weeks or Chief Evans? Right, seeing none, I purposely skipped over missed opportunities. I'd like to have Ms. Gaynor here for next month for her report, because her report will also include December and this month. So I'd like to just skip over that. So I didn't forget it. I just would like someone that's more knowledgeable with this board to give that report. But Colonel Holmes, are you aware of anybody that y'all forgot to give a citation to? You want to confess now? You want to wait?
No, I'm sure we're on the case. So,
Okay. Major
Not gonna
London.
fess up and catch him. You're gonna wait until y'all got the evidence and then say.
no.
All right, well, the person with the most knowledge will be here hopefully next month, and I'll have this tape to prove that you were either correct or you were sadly mistaken. Okay, okay, all right. Major London, do y'all miss anybody?
No, we're good.
Okay, all right. How many youth are in our jails? We'll start with BSO.
Okay, our total population, jail population is 3,427, which is 79.1%. We had 3 positive cases, COVID-19 cases. They were all identified at booking at the main jail. As far as juveniles, we have a total of 6. We have 5 males, 1 female. We have 5 males at the Conti and 1 female at North Broward Bureau. They all have received health and welfare and education, schooling by the staff there too. So we're all good. There's no issues there. All right.
Major London, you have a 16-year-old in your jail you don't know about?
We have no juveniles in our booking facility, ma'am. For the record.
Any questions of Colonel Holmes or Major London?
Madam President, if I could add real quick.
Oh, that's Madam President.
I know.
I know we're used to this. Yes, sir.
I know Ms. Ellison was inquiring about our CIT. Real quick, all of our patrol deputies are CIT certified. You can't be cleared to work on patrol unless you are CIT certified. So if you've been out for a while, you can't come back to full duty until you're CIT certified. And as far as our schools, we have a refresher course every fall, right before school starts. You have to take a refresher course, CIT refresher course, in order to be in the schools as an SRO. So we're all cleared there. That's from BSO.
Okay.
Okay, and let me ask the major, because he might have quiet over there now. I think he put his picture up. And he put his still up to try to throw us off.
Exit stage left. Yes, all of our SROs are CIT certified. It's a requirement. I think contractually, I think Dr. Wanza can confirm that, but I think contractually, all of the SROs must be CIT certified.
In the agreement.
And in the event somebody has to leave their position and you have to put someone else, how long does that replacement SRO have to be trained?
It's a priority for them to be trained. I don't know what resources the colonel. Hold on, let me.
I know it used to be a process where you had and they had this once a year type thing, so it wasn't so tight. So I'm asking now, with all of these issues going on, if you will find out, Major, what's the time frame, if there is one, and if not, why? When you come working.
It's a priority for the people who are assigned to the school. The challenge that we have, and I'm not sure if the colonel has some other aspect that they're accessing. I'll talk to them offline if that's the case, but the challenge with getting people CIT certified is the training that is put on comes around very sporadically, maybe once a month. So getting that many people through the program, and it's a 40-hour course, is the challenge. But it's a priority for our school resource officers.
Colonel Holmes, y'all use the same training?
the question? So you're saying they would have a month since it comes around once a month? I mean, do y'all check with the colonel's office and see
Yeah.
when their class is or something along those lines? You make it a priority. A priority means it's subjective. So what does that really mean?
The very next available training date for the SROs. So I can't give anything more concrete than that.
My question is, do you use the same training program that BSO does?
I don't know what the colonel is using, but the one that we use is the one that's put on by Henderson. They're usually the county lead for providing that training. So I
Yeah.
don't know if the colonel is using something else.
Yeah, we use them, but like I said, because it's mandatory for all of our patrol deputies, I think that's the difference.
Okay, you don't have any flat.
Right.
Okay, you don't
Right.
have any
You
lab.
don't have people that slip through the cracks because you can't be a patrol deputy at all without being CIT certified.
Maybe something we need to talk to your chief about, Major.
Yes, ma'am. The CIT certification is one of the priorities, and we are getting our people through as quick as we can. There's logistics involved.
That's not what we're talking about. I get that. You're doing the dance. I get that. You're doing the dance, but that's not the same thing. You're not saying the same thing as what the colonel is saying. So we were asking if Fort Lauderdale move to that space where the colonel and BSO is. I think if they have, I don't know, 3,000 folk and y'all have 550, we ought to be able to get there in the same speed as BSO, who have 6 times as many folk as you all have. Just saying.
Yeah, you're actually confirming the challenges. They have more resources to backfill, whereas if we're smaller, it's more of a challenge. So,
But
point taken.
okay, all right, that, because
Okay.
we'll talk some more about that, because with that month or so lapse of their training, they're still in the school, is that correct?
Mhm.
So that's a
Yes, ma'am.
problem. That
If that even occurs, as I said, the people who are selected to go to the schools we look at them for their training. And part of that training that's desired is them being CIT certified. If we have to replace them, then that's one of the things that we're looking to replace the SROs with. So it's a priority, so I can leave it with that.
Okay, I'll check around with you. I'm gonna come with President Ellison to visit you. Both of us in the same.
We have to meet with the chief, because we're not saying the same thing, but I understand, Major.
Okay.
You're a good soldier, I understand that, but it's just not what we're looking for.
In the 6 minutes we've got, is there a legislative update, Mr. Weeks?
Chief Evans needs to tell us about how many children they got over there.
Oh, I'm sorry. How many children do you have?
We have 83 youth in detention care, 45 of
You
those.
said 83?
It's in detention care, that's in total. 45 of those in secure detention. So the other remaining half are on some form of community-based supervision, electronic monitoring, intensive home detention, with 37 being male and 8 being female. No incidences or medical concerns at this time.
Can you tell me how many are Black, white, Hispanic? Is that possible to get?
I can. I'll have to go pull the report again, but I'll send it to you.
So, okay, if you'll do that and we'll disseminate it. All right, any questions of the 3 for the reports? All right, we got 5 minutes. Mr. Weeks, is there any further legislative? I think you answered that with the detention center. Anything else you're doing legislatively?
We're monitoring the bills that are being filed that impact criminal justice system and juvenile. We've not seen anything that is jumping out to us that's alarming as of yet. But as we see those bills, we reach out to our friends and our partners in the Broward delegation and have conversations and we make ourselves available for any ideas that they may have. So it's a little early. I've heard that there's a few bill spots available. Folks may still have some. So I think probably by the end of this week or next week, we'll start seeing a lot more filing. And that's when we have to start giving some feedback, but nothing yet that jumps out.
Okay. But please keep us abreast of it and posted, and we'll certainly be there and reading these bills. Chief Evans, I know there was an announcement, and I asked the secretary to send it out to all the board members for nominations for DJJ? Anything else from DJJ that we need to know about?
Can you hear me? Am I off me? Okay.
We can
I
hear
just,
you now.
Angel Book Drive, just want to let you all know that I'm expecting a drop off from the Public Defender's Office on Friday. Thank you for those who contributed to that book collection. But if you want to drop off books, just coordinate with.
I gave money, so hopefully they'll show that my contribution was sent in.
Much appreciated, much appreciated. Just want to also announce that this is Human Trafficking Month. Today is National Human Trafficking Day, and the Broward Human Trafficking Coalition are sponsoring some events throughout the community. So your support with eradicating human trafficking would be appreciated. And to the demographic question, as of right now, there are 41 Black, 5 white in the facility. The 18 of the youth are 17, 10 or 16, 9 or 15, and the count went up by 1 because there are 9 females in there now, and remaining 37.
So instead of 8 females, there are 9 females?
Correct, right at this time.
Okay. Any questions?
Madam Chair, if I may,
I'm listening.
I have a small correction on that. It's not the Public Defender's Office that will be dropping off books for the Angel Book Drive. It's the Omega Psi Phi Zeta Chi chapter will be dropping off those books for the Angel Book Drive.
So noted, thank you.
Right? You know, I was gonna tell.
Okay. I'll be looking for the brothers, Zeta Chi.
So the Qs are, I don't hear nothing but the alphas. We got any of them on here? Okay, they didn't, do they read? Okay. All right, we got 2 minutes. Anything for the good of the order?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm listening.
I just wanted to add to what Ms. Evans was talking about. The meeting I was at prior to this meeting was a human trafficking meeting. And just to let you know that we have a human trafficking unit here at the Sheriff's Office who they do tremendous work. And we're going to be working with other entities here in South Florida and around the country to address this serious crisis. We just made an arrest not too long ago. It was in the newspaper where a subject was found guilty and was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. So we're taking it serious. We're going to expand our unit. We have some great investigators that take it seriously. And I just wanted to fill everyone in that, you know, we at the Sheriff's Office, we're definitely looking at increasing our unit and taking it even more serious and addressing that issue.
And one of your employees has a passion for it, Roger D. Hart. He keeps me posted on the blast.
Yes.
My former court deputy. So
yes, that's the man.
Yeah.
Yep, he's an expert.
All right.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Walters. We have 1 minute.
We also have
Under my watch, we don't have any more minutes, and the reason I raised my hand and raised my voice is that you either need a motion to extend or a motion to adjourn.
Can we get a motion to extend for 5 minutes?
move to extend for 5 minutes, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We have 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Walters.
Dr. Osgood is on deck.
Yes, Dr. Osgood, we got 4.5 minutes now.
So certainly you will see a lot of human trafficking legislation coming out of Tallahassee this legislative session. I'm also personally doing hate crime legislation, as well as legislation to try to support our school and right-sizing school districts. So please pay attention to the legislation. We know on the House side, they have priorities. They can only do 6 bills. On the Senate side, we can do more, but you kind of need sponsors on both bills. If we're doing appropriations, please invite those appropriation chairs. We have to move away from partisan parties. It doesn't matter what the political party is. When people are elected, we have to represent all of the people that live in the district. So I just want to make sure that when we're asking for money and appropriations, that we are asking everyone. Our kids are so important to us that everyone needs to be involved, that we're inviting everyone to visit the Department of Juvenile Justice Center so they can see what we see. Those things will help us get the support that we need in Tallahassee to get things done.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
for the good of the order, I wanted to say Happy Founder's Day to the devastating divas of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Thank you so
And happy
much.
Founder's Day to the oh so pretty girls of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And though I don't see any on here, just in case there are some out in our TV land here in YouTube land, I want to also say Happy Founder's Day to the final ladies of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated.
Thank you so much. And we offer prayers for the Cowboys this weekend.
Oh, you don't need prayer for the Cowboys. But I would like to know if we are going to at least say thank you to those who on the call but not on the panel. I know when we started, they said there were people that was on the other side. I would assume that's those on the phone, not on the panel. And I want to say, Madam Chair, we talked about an awful lot today, and we need to not go home and go to sleep and forget everything that was said, because there's been so much said and so much good information, and we only need to take this, I would like to say, and run with it. But however we move with it, let it be moving.
I agree. I agree. We have a lot to think about and to do. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment, Madam Chair.
Second.
All right. Please be cognizant, our next meeting is February 8th at 3 p.m. We'll start. I'll
How
see
about
y'all.
them Cowboys?
What about them?
Championship, we winning. We win.